Good morning. Welcome to our session. My name is Brady Mitchell. I'm an instructional specialist at Western Maricopa Education Center.
And I'm Susan Leon. I'm also an instructional specialist at WestMec with Brady.
And today you clicked on our session, so thank you for attending. Thank you for spending the next probably 20 to 30 minutes listening to us on this little recording. But what we really wanted to focus on here today is really leveling up your work-based learning through articulation and intentionality. What we mean by that is really just, when it comes to work-based learning, how can we do a better job at this and better articulating for our teachers and helping our teachers really truly do a better job of planning out what that work-based learning looks like for their particular program. So our objectives here, we got four objectives that we're really going to kind of dive into. Our first one is really, before we can dive into how to do this, we got to understand what are the basic requirements for work-based learning. So we're going to really go over that comprehensive understanding of the basic requirements and high quality measures for a work-based learning program. Once we get a base understanding of those basic requirements needed for a good work-based learning program, we're going to go over some examples and some planning documents that really help articulate your program's work-based learning continuum. Those examples, us at WestMec with Susan and our C&I team, we've really worked well over the past couple of years to really help our teachers do a better job of what are some documents or what are some planning, pre-planning we can do that can really be a good tool for them as the school year goes on to help identify what work-based learning activities happened throughout that program. Once we've identified and observed all of these examples and planning documents that you'll be able to beg, borrow, and steal and make your own, we're going to go through some strengths and some opportunities that you might identify in your work-based learning program. And then lastly, really understand some possible district documentation and AD monitoring requirements that these documents could work with when it comes to whether it's district level documentation or when it comes to AD monitoring. The CTE delivery model is what we live by in CTE. When it comes to good classroom instruction, a good teacher has to spend time planning and preparing what they're going to do in their classroom when it comes to lesson plans or getting their materials ready for a class to plan and execute and reflect on, what those classroom activities were. Same thing for hands-on instruction. Our teachers spend a good amount of time planning and preparing their labs so that it's a seamless transition from that classroom into the lab experience. Well, when it comes to work-based learning, which is a quarter of our CT delivery model, is there opportunity here to do this better? Is there an opportunity to really level up our planning for work-based learning, just like we do when it comes to our classroom instruction and our hands-on lab instruction? You either plan to fail or you fail to plan, one of the two. And so when it comes to work-based learning, this is a big opportunity to really plug our students in with industry and really prepare them for life after school and into the workforce. So we found at WestMec that, we got to do a better job of how we articulate and plan what this work-based learning looks like. So that's really the focus here, is that work-based learning part of our CT delivery model, and really doing a better job of being intentional and planning this out so that hopefully if we make a good plan, we can execute it to the best of our ability. Now we're not missing any of those tiny little pieces that, if we're 3/4 of the way through the school year, you're like, oh man, I forgot to do resume writing and we're doing mock interviews next week, or whatever the case may be. So, making a good plan now is easier to execute as the time goes on. So that's really a big chunk of what we're going to dive into here next. So when it comes to requirements, Arizona Department of Education has a work-based learning guide that really goes through the basic requirements needed for a work-based learning program. And all of our CT programs have a work-based learning component. So utilizing these resources, these basic requirements from Arizona Department of Ed, as well as high quality CTE framework from ACTE, we really created a quick little checklist, if you will, for our teachers to be able to look at this and be able to really just kind of do a quick litmus test for them to make sure, like, hey, what am I doing? What are our basic requirements? Am I missing something? Do I need to spend some time developing something or whatever? So, utilizing these resources helped us create this little checklist. And here's the checklist now. We created this so you can see there's a little Department of Education couple spots right there. Like, my program offers at least 120 hours of work-based learning experiences. I know when I was in the classroom, I could answer yes to that. But if someone asked me, how do you break it up and how much time is spent for this and how much time is spent for that, I don't know if I really had an answer for that. So I know that this is something that just happens in our program, but to make it that much better, to really level up, which is really what this session is about, how can we take these resources to really articulate that, yeah, we are doing 120 hours and here's when and here's how and here's all the different activities that we're doing, so on and so forth. The second one there for ADE is my program offers a major experiences like clinicals or a student-based enterprise or an externship. Maybe some programs do a good job with creating the work-based learning activities, but really don't have an idea of what maybe the end goal is or that big major experience. Do you have all the required documentation needed for work-based learning from ADE? And that ADE work-based learning plan or that guide has examples and things in there that really can help you identify what needs to be in those documentations. As you know, most districts have these already kind of created. They just might need to be tweaked between programs. Now, when it comes to work-based learning high quality indicators, you can see here from just, is there a full continuum of work-based learning experiences? Anywhere to, work-based learning experiences are intentionally aligned with each student's education and career goals. Down there towards the bottom, the work-based learning experiences are supervised by CT staff with clearly defined roles. As all the people that were working together on this have defined roles of who's doing what. And that's kind of part of your, documentation that you create with your work-based learning docs, like your internship forms, where here's the employer's role, here's the school's role, here's the student's role, here's the teacher's role. So we created this document here to really just help our teachers be able to just check to make sure, hey, are you doing these things, or is this an opportunity for you to spend some time to develop these with help from district support staff, so that not only we're kind of checking the boxes, if you will, but also really making sure that we're not missing the boat on one of these things that can really just create a more robust and more engaging work-based learning program in whatever program that you're teaching. So with that, our teachers went through that and kind of did a quick check to make sure they knew where they were at. We also kind of created this a work-based learning continuum that really was there for them to just see the progression that should be happening throughout the program, whether it's a 1-year program, 2-year program, 3-year program. This continuum really helped spell out, in the beginning of your program, we're doing these career awareness activities like, employment exploration activities. You're doing field trips. We're doing maybe some, career days, career fairs, where you're just exploring, you're just seeing what's out there. And then that expands to the career exploration, where now that you've identified that career that I'm really interested in, now let's really dive into maybe some job shadowing, some interviewing skills for people in that industry, some paid, non-paid general work experiences, if they can go on a weekend and just kind of maybe get their hands dirty per se in that particular field, so they kind of get some basic experiences there. Once they've explored that, now they're continuing on to that career preparation, where now we're really getting into creating our resumes and mock interviews with those industry professionals, those simulated lab experiences, or the school-based enterprises that we can embed in your program that really is preparing them for that world of work, all the way up to that career training, where now they're in an internship, an externship, a clinical, a pre-apprentice program. So, WestMech, we created this work-based learning continuum really just to help get a good visual for our teachers to really show the progression through the program. And that helped them identify, maybe some areas that they really need to maybe focus on, or maybe something that they really didn't have in place before. And so this really helps them see the big picture, if you will, of what work-based learning is all about for the entire program. Another activity we did, and this was kind of version 1.0 of our ability at WestMech to really increase our work-based learning programs within all of our 27 programs we have with our central programs at WestMech. We had all the teachers do this activity where, as you can see from the picture here, we created a document that really just kind of showed, okay, here's year one, semester one, all the way through year two, semester two. And really, we had little cutouts, little pieces of paper, and they utilized that to really try to identify, when are these things happening in your program? When were they happening? And that way they could see just that big picture. I can reflect back on when I was in the classroom. I know I did all these things, but they were kind of happenstance. They happened when, I can make them happen. And I really wasn't very intentional. And I didn't really intentionally plan what should the progression be through the program. It would just kind of just happened when I had some free time, and, they happened, but man, I could have done it way better. So that was the purpose of this activity, was to really just start that process with our teachers, to really get them an idea of what's happening when. And as Susan's going to kind of dive into here, how this then translated into version 2.0, version 3.0, that where we're at now.
Thanks, Brady. So this was one of the first things we did with the teachers to kind of map out their work-based learning throughout this presentation, and we're going to share with you afterwards a lot of these resources. Now, this one, we're just sharing a picture with you in the folder for after the presentation, but I do want to just add on to, if you wanted to do this one, what we did was big legal sizes of paper. They had it in front of them on a table, and then we had the labels. We had a label maker with all of the different various work-based learning activities that we do at WestMech, and then they had fun sticking them on, and then kind of roughly assigning how much time they spent with per student per activity on the chart. So this one's a little different. If you wanted to implement this yourself, you'd have to kind of come up with the labels and what activities you would want on the labels. We do a variety of things at WestMech, so we don't want to provide you with just the specific ones that we do. So that kind of evolved into another activity we had the teachers do through their Teacher Induction Academy, which is like a run book. So a run book is similar to, what are the things that you're doing every month to work through an activity or a big process that requires a lot of planning. So as we know, work-based learning requires a lot of planning. Again, as Brady said, it's similar to lesson planning. You need a roadmap to what's going on. So for example, if you are about to have your students, or you're planning to have your students in clinicals in the spring, there's a lot leading up to that you as a teacher and the students and the parents need to do and complete. So what we have our teachers do with this run book here is start in the summer or the spring and work backwards. So what I would tell a teacher is, identify right now on this kind of calendar run book, where is your major experience and what is it? Then they'd have them write it in. Then we'd work backwards from that. to what they need to do to make sure they're prepared for that clinical experience. Do they have their fingerprint clearance card? Are their parents aware where they're going? Do they have all the hospital or medical facilities paperwork all filled out? Or do they have their background check done with them? So it really breaks down for the teacher. Yes, I know it's August and I'm just getting ready for class, but I still need to think about clinicals that are coming up in the spring because it requires a lot of work. And you will have a sample of this one in the resources we provided you. So this, again, this keeps evolving, right? So some of these activities that we're showing you were done across years. So we do a lot of PD over the summer and during the year with our teachers. So at different intervals, we've done these things for the past 2-3 years. Another one of our initiatives was to include a comprehensive look at the CTE delivery model through our scope and sequence. So if you look on the left side right here, you can see just a snapshot from our hairstyling scope and sequence. And if you look at not the last bullet point in the unit, but the second to last, every unit, our teachers were asked to identify what work-based learning are you doing during that unit. So you can see in the infection control and safety 2-week unit that hairstyling does, they are having guest speakers. They're doing a virtual exchange with a business. They're doing the barbicide sanitation certification and the Milady infection control certification through that unit that all align with some of the work-based learning activities that are leading up to doing their major experience at the end of their program. So what we had them do, and this is kind of the biggest things we've had them do, which was in the fall, is make this work-based learning articulated document over on the right-hand side. It's very comprehensive. And this is what we've landed on to finally document for some of our reporting agencies that we have monitoring visits coming up. So we found this document on the right-hand side is really comprehensive because if you can see what we did on the right, the teachers had an option to have a drop down in that first left-hand column. So their first semester, first year, they could pick from any of those items that are on our continuum that Brady showed you. And then they'll have to write a specific topic. So if you look again at hairstyling, they had the Aquage folks come out and do a hair design guest speaking. They had Mazzani come out, do textured styling guest speaking, about how many hours that was, and then about what month that occurred. So this helps with 2 things. One, we had them plan what they were doing this semester, but we are going to have them go back at the end of the year and say, okay, now what did I do? I planned this. I said we did this. Did we do it? Or did we adjust it? Did I add some things on that I originally didn't plan for, but they fall in the work-based learning realm? So it's really helped our teachers see the bigger picture with again, the name of our presentation, but the articulation of work-based learning and just how intentional you do have to be progressing through the continuum of work-based learning through a program. So here's it a little bit bigger, and you guys can see it went down through, again, our programs at Westmec are either 1 year or 2 years. So hairstyling is a 4-year program. So they kind of had 4 boxes they went through. I do want to say one comment. I think the people probably watching this video know that work-based learning is what happens from the beginning of a program to the end, but I just want to reiterate, sometimes people really focus on, oh, it's that clinical piece, it's that student-based enterprise piece, that externship, internship piece. That is huge, and that's what we want our kids to work up to and get to, and that's the huge work-based learning experience. But work-based learning is everything that happens from the beginning to the end of a student's program. So anything on that continuum, and when you're accounting for what ADE wants, and that is 120 hours of articulated work-based learning activities, you can count any of that stuff from guest speaking, resume writing, all the way up to that big experience. So what we also had, because it's 120 hours, I do want to say at the bottom of that Excel sheet, it tallied up their hours while they were typing into it so they could kind of see where they were at. And we do have a sample of this provided to you as well. So this document that we're sharing with you can be used for a lot of different things. So What we're doing at Westmec with it too is it's going to be a supporting document for their teacher evaluations. Beginning this year, we're including work-based learning and leadership development on their evaluation. So it's really going to help them articulate to their administration what they did this year, and how they progressed and were intentional with their work-based learning activities. We also have our Westmec has our ADE monitoring visit, which I'll mention in the next slide. But we also have our Cognia visit coming up next year. So this document is going to help with Cognia as well, to show them our work-based learning in each program. We have strategic plan initiatives. There are vision elements internally in Westmec, and one of those big initiatives was to revise and refine a lot of our different work-based learning practices. And this document has really helped solidify and make something that was common across all programs. When all programs, work-based learning is so different, it really helped have a common document that we could see work-based learning across all 27 of our programs. And then ADE monitoring, I will mention in just a minute. So you can also think about too, if you have a CTSO program of work and an advisory council program of work, we know that looking at that CTE delivery model, things do bleed into each other. Yes, you might be doing a classroom lesson, but it's also on resume writing. Yes, you might be doing a lab, but you're having them focus on communication and leadership that day, which bleeds into leadership development. So even though they might be intentional work-based learning activities, they probably also align with some of your CTSO activities and your advisory council initiatives. So think about that stuff if you're through your planning of work-based learning. So again, I alluded to the ADE monitoring. So we were the first group, Westmec and our surrounding districts that are within Westmec. So our districts within Westmec have been reviewed. We are getting our ADE monitoring review in a few weeks. So we wanted to, again, make this document to meet some of these work-based learning indicators on here, to clearly articulate to ADE what we do here. So if you kind of look at some of these indicators, you can see, well, yes, I can do that. No, I'm not doing that. But that document I just showed you really hones in on A. So if you read A, it says work-based learning experiences are accessible to every student at some point during the program. Documentation of type of work-based learning. So we wanted to, again, have the documentation of what work-based learning the students are doing when. That document really proves that all students had exposure to guest speakers, resume writing, etc. And then if you kind of skip down a little bit, you can kind of see B's focus on certification, C focuses on those documentation you're having your students do, which is a very important topic, just not the topic of this presentation. D, the requirements and learning plans that you have for each specific student. And then E. So E is CTE program annual report of work-based learning activities. And then you can see there's several different things: an annual report, a review, and review and summary. That document can really help with E as well, because it really is an articulated artifact that outlines what your students did from start to finish. And it has the hours broken out too. So ADE can see that you covered 120 hours through your program's activities. So with that, those were our initiatives at Westmec and some of the things we worked through here. However, there is a lot of really great stuff going on right now with work-based learning around the country, and we would be remiss if we didn't share some of that with you. So there again is a document with these links in the resources we're providing you. The first one is the link to the Department of Education work-based learning site. The first link on there is the work-based learning guide, which is definitely what should be guiding you through the basics of your work-based learning program. But they also have some other resources on there that are very good. The second link right there is the link to the ACTE high quality work-based learning resources. So there are several high quality indicators that ACTE identified. Work-based learning was one of them. They have an entire library of resources. In the work-based learning section, they have a lot of case studies. It is so much information and it's great stuff. They even have a specific area for COVID-19 work-based learning, high quality. So you can click on that too and get information through that. The third resource right there, Elevate Ed AZ, is an initiative of the Greater Phoenix Chamber Foundation. And it's kind of like it's an initiative they're doing with their business partners and education to really bring them together through work-based learning. They have a great work-based learning guide that is a little bit over 30 pages on that first homepage if you click that, and it's a really great resource. And then the last thing I wanted to mention is ACTE does have a work-based learning section right now that is very active. They have a webinar probably every month or every other month with panelists and really specific information they've been going over. Lots of resources on their page. Jan Jardine is their leader from Utah, and she is a work-based learning expert. So that is another great resource to connect with a lot of work-based learning people, hear some great stuff, and be active in that community. So thank you guys so much. It's always hard doing a presentation looking at yourself or just the screen. So we really appreciate you guys watching us for this little half hour, however long it was. If you need to email us, please, 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 Brady and I would love to talk to you. Our email's right there. It's our first name dot last name at west-mec.org. And thank you guys so much.
Yes, thank you again. And again, all the resources that we showed you will be available to you in the resource section. Again, if you need any help with anything or the resource didn't load for you, please reach out to us. And we look forward to our little Q&A session at the end of this video. So thank you again and have a great rest of your day.